you know, uh, there was a time you started the company and it didn't do well, right? These early days, and you kind of pivoted and morphed and changed your business model as you got along. And I was reading that once, when the venture was not doing well, you were left with one or less than 10 employees. And then headhunters were calling you for a job, or would you want a job? And you've seen lots of failures before this spectacular success. Tell us, what have you learned in this journey? What are top 2, 3 things you learned in this journey?
Look, I don't think we as people or the business model or what we do every day, wake up on a Monday morning or on a Friday evening has changed. The business environment changed. I don't think we can give ourselves too much credit or berate ourselves too much. I think the challenge was that in 1999, we were well before our time.
Sure.
And the internet penetration, mobile penetration, single number policy, no debit cards, no credit cards, no net banking. There weren't any, I mean, you had TCP/IP accounts where it took time to dial up. So we were well before our time. And therefore, even though we had a website, no mobile app at that time, we were selling tickets on the phone. And we would home deliver tickets. It was, see, in an internet business or any business, your cost curve needs to flatten as your revenue curve keeps going up. And in our case, every time our revenue curve went up, our cost curve went up as well. And we had an opportunity loss on the weekend because we were buying inventory. And on the weekdays, we had an actual loss. So it was a catch-22 situation. And so when the dot-com bust happened in the US, it hit us in India in 2002, we had no option because the funding dried up. And these are cycles, 7-year cycles. Whether it's the stock market, whether it's elections, which is very relevant. You come to Delhi and thoughts. I've had 3 conversations since morning on the national elections.
What will happen in national elections?
I'm not a soothsayer.
Yeah.
Don't draw me into something.
You know, you could do research because you are a technology company. You have
audiences. I'll give you some advice. The best researchers talk to a taxi driver. You'll get the pulse. I was in the US on a Thursday and I was in California, and she was an African-American taxi driver in a democratic state on Obamacare, driving me to LA airport, a female driver, and I said, what's going to happen in the elections? Tuesday were the results. And she said, Trump is going to win. And I said, it's complete antithesis to what I would imagine. And she's saying, because the other candidate is just stale bread.
So when
you talk to taxi drivers, you'll get your election results. So I'm not the guy.
Today my driver has come, so but maybe tomorrow I'll try and take a taxi.
Tell you only the things that you want to hear. You want to talk to taxi drivers, not your driver.
I totally buy that. I totally buy that. So you're telling us the lessons you learned. And are you, again, when you're talking about the right metrics, you said that I'm more excited about the customer experience. The theme of the conference is experience economy. So tell us what is BookMyShow? Is it a technology company? How do you define your company?
See, we're a consumer company.
Okay.
I am not a technology guy. I don't have a Facebook account. I've deleted my account 6 years ago.
You don't check emails?
I don't check emails.
53,000 emails?
No, it's now 127,000. Oh. And I don't have...
I check mails on your behalf.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. You could hire me. I check that many emails in a day.
So I don't tweet. I don't have Instagram. And so I think this fallacy of saying that am I a technology company, or anybody for that matter, and classifying companies into brick and mortar versus new age and technology is a fallacy. All companies are merging together. Today, if you see any of the internet companies and the backbones that they've built warehouses, they've got home delivery, bike guys, they've started buying their own cars. You look at any company which started off as a tech company, now has brick and mortar.
Sure.
And all the brick and mortar companies today, and old world economy companies that you call them, all are using technology and front end to actually harness their consumer experience.
Sure.
So I don't think you need to classify people into technology and non-technology. I think it's more about, are you a consumer company?
You're solving a problem.
If you're consumer tech, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? And the ways and means to solve that problem will be very different. In some cases, you may use technology at the back end. If you're a water company, right, who's selling water, there may not be any technology at the front end for the end consumer, but everything at the back end could have technology.
Ashish, you're creating a lot of live experiences. Now you aggregated audiences. In some way, you ensure marketing. You can make sure before a show is sold, it is sold, so to say. You can go to somebody and you've done that with, you brought lots of IPRs, life experiences, whatever you want to call it, formats to India. Tell us about the live formats that you're creating or bringing. And again, you've talked that we brought Cirque du Soleil because we found the same set of shared values and we thought there was a space. But in some way, when Deepak says that you're the most powerful person in the event industry, and I met these young boys from the India makeup show, Ninad and Sahil and Akul is there, yeah? I mean, they talk about how much you can do, right? You can, so tell us, the reason I'm asking you is this, tell us which are the new experiences that you're creating on our platform.
I can't control what Deepak says or doesn't say. and that doesn't make it true. Having said that, see, look, we work with Deepak, I work with Percept, Karan's here, Brian is here somewhere, Fountainhead. I think there is a huge headroom in the Indian ecosystem for out-of-home experiences. And I think as your roti kapda makan is done and your GDP is growing at the rate that it is, I think there's a lot of challenges why the live events industry hasn't grown. Number one is that the tax rates were very, very high. They still, for live, tend to be the highest. I mean, cinemas, we've dropped it. The GST is now down to 18%. But on live experiences, it's 28%. It's unheard of because live and what you guys do and bring to the table, all of us, brings in tourism, it brings in hotel rooms, it brings in a lot of other things, right? And I think you've got to take a F&B. You need to take a holistic...
Transportation, mobility, yeah. It impacts everyone.
You need to take a holistic view. And I don't think somebody there is doing that. And I think we're impressing upon the people at the right places at the right time. And I think the government right now is willing to listen. And they are. The other issue is that we work with partners across. We've also done some of our own work is because the headroom is just so large that no one person can do this. It requires a village to bring up a child. It's the same with this industry. We are actually in its infancy. If you truly believe that the live events business in India is at its infancy and is an infant, it requires a village to bring up a child. And I think there's a lot more that we need to do on the infrastructure side. There's a lot more we need to do on the policy. And these themes keep going on and on. But sometimes you've just got to take the bull by its horns and then do what it needs. So we've started now investing in venues. We are looking at putting in production values. We're working with our partners to enhance the experience, not only on the consumer side, but even the content pipeline. The way I look at the consumer business, I mean, everybody knows there are how many ever states in India, different language, different culture, different food, different motivations. It's almost like Europe stitched together. It's not one country.
Sure.
However, if I were to oversimplify this, we are actually 3 continents living in one country. The top 100 million in India are actually the United Kingdom of India. They are the guys in this room. Went to private schools, wear clothes like this, whose PPP is equal to anywhere else in the world. One bottle of wine in a hotel like that is equal to another guy's 3 months' salary. It's a very sad metric, but that is the truth. You go to a Bukhara, you can feed, a whole family.
I only go when people like you take me, otherwise I don't.
No, I'm just telling you that it's the United Kingdom of India, sure, which is the top 100 million. And we're bullshitting ourselves if you think that there is a market beyond that, at that price point. The next 400 million Indians are really what I call is the Brazil of India. And the last 700 million people are the Africa of India. They are underserved, undernourished, underrepresented, and they are exploited, unfortunately, by the top 100 million. And today, even at the 100 million mark, there's a large enough population. We don't have a 1.3 billion market. The other way to look at the slicing and dicing is the top 7 cities, next 28, next 54, which is 1 million plus population, and then the rest of the country. BookMyShow now is present in 600 cities and towns. But it's the long tail of that market. We have another business that takes care of that, which is TownScript. So when you look at experiential market and people heading out, the top 100 million is what can afford this. How many of those 100 million actually go out there and buy a ticket today? That number in itself, that universe is very tiny. So we've got to do a lot more, and that will come from policy, infrastructure, content, scale, and a pipeline, and also it's about experiences. So I'll give you another anecdote. When you go to Broadway or you go to West End, it is a destination where you say, I'll just watch a West End or a Broadway show. It doesn't matter if you watched Aladdin or A King and I or Lion King, because the quality of that content or the performance is of a certain scale and standard, right? Similarly, when you eat in London or you eat in New York or you eat even in Singapore or Hong Kong, there is no conversation saying that if you eat out, you're eating out too often and it's unhealthy. The average meal a Beijingite eats is 9 to 10 meals a week out of home. In India, if you tend to eat out so often, the two conversations your wife or your mother or somebody at home will have is that don't eat out too often, it's unhealthy, or you'll fall sick. Because there is no standardization. And the same is the challenge in the Indian entertainment business. The standard is so varied that one guy says, oh, I'm doing a Broadway-inspired show, and it could be such a shit show that you charge a 3,000 rupee ticket and you just want to walk away from it.
Just look at the Playboy clubs, how shitty they are in India.
Or, I haven't been to one. Or the other
Not
is...
that I have been, my friends told me. I can't afford it.
You walked into
anyway.
that one, Annurag, but anyways. So it's all recorded and your wife can see it, but anyways. The other one is that you pay 3,000 and you can have a great experience.
Right.
Now, when you have such a varied quality of entertainment or content, it breaks the confidence. For every one good show that you put out there or a bad experience that you have, people don't want to step out because they're like, I don't want to go. Today when you go to a multiplex, right? The quality of the seat, the quality of the air conditioning, the quality of the food is all standard. It's
Absolutely.
by and large standardized. And you don't mind paying. We, in our own generation, used to pay 50 rupees for a movie ticket. Now you pay 450 on a weekend. But it is a quality standard and you're willing to pay for it. You don't want to go back to those days where the seats had bed bugs in them, there was mosquitoes, the samosa, you'd fall sick. Or even look at cricket match, IPL. Why are families and youth going back, and kids and wives and parents, even adults, elderly going? Because there is wheelchair access. It's the same cricket match. Wheelchair access, you've got clean toilets, you've got standardized water, and you've got clean food and recognizable brands. And because the standard is of high quality, you know that there's not a goon sitting on your seat,
Sure.
which somebody had promised you, and he's saying, get out of here. So I think in the live events business, one of the only advice or the reason why we've started sort of doing more of it and working more closely with our partners is to standardize that experience. Because every bad experience, whether it's gate entry or food or the quality of the content or a bad performance, means that same customer that you won will not come back for another 10 events.
Fantastic, beautifully put. I couldn't agree more with you. Not many people know that your company has maybe a lot of people know, but has a substantial shareholding from Reliance. I don't know where it's parked, and because when Network 18 invested with Raghav and Sai, Haresh and Sai, and then when Mr. Ambani bought Network 18, it went over. So you work with the junior Ambani. You have the Reliance factor, as I call it. They have a Geo Garden today. They have a venue. So tell us, how does it liberate working with? What have you learned from them working with them? Because whatever sector they take, they work on a certain scale. They transform that sector. Good, bad can be agreed, but good for the consumer, definitely. And they create value, right? Both for shareholders and for themselves. So tell us how liberating it is to work with them and how restrictive it is to work with them.
I think, look, we're a privately held company which has an outstanding board. And Network 18 is one of my shareholders which brings in a lot of value. I've also got TPG, which is one of the largest investors in live events. They own Cirque du Soleil. They've invested in Cirque du Soleil. They have Blue Man Group. They have EMC, CAA, all of that is TPG. I've got Stripes Group, which is based out of New York. And Dan Marriott, one of the partners, used to be with IAC, Ticketmaster Live Nation, for many, many years. I have Axel Venture Partners, which is a phenomenal, prolific internet investor.
Very good quality of money.
So I've got a very, very high quality board which brings in, each member brings in their own quality. But at the end of the day, look, the execution is based on the operating team. The business hasn't changed, the people haven't changed, we operate the same way. If you don't have a supportive board or a cohesive board, like I said, if to be successful as an entrepreneur, as in business, you've got to have humility. And you've also got to believe that you're running a soccer team, not a cricket team. The difference, and the subtle difference, yet a huge difference, is a cricket team is made out of individual star performances. In a soccer team, it's all cohesive. You could be twiddling your thumb as a goalkeeper for the rest of the match and only come into play at the penalty kicks. Or you could be a defender and not get the glory, but you're the guys who makes the play at the midfield. So the big difference between a soccer team and cricket team is that there are no individual performances. At the end of the day, it's one goal, which can make or break it. It's not about many, many scores. So I think that's what we run. And I believe my board members, including Network 18, are players of a very, very big soccer game.
Fantastic. Again, very eloquently put. Now, as you talk of the experiential economy growing, there are two things happening. People used to experience entertainment outside the home because in some way you're out of home, right? As you defined it, are now experiencing entertainment on their mobile phones, in their living rooms. Second, what is also happening is that the 100 million, the United States of India, United Kingdom of India, whatever you want, are also there are too many options. There are too many options. And when I say options, I mean options beyond entertainment. That's what I mean. Now, how are you dealing with that? On one end, the size of this events business of the experiential economy is growing. On the other hand, a lot of people used to go to movies. You look at the US, movie viewing in theaters is down at levels that were unimaginable 10 years back. I mean, you could see the slide. What happens? 45% of your business, 85% used to come from movies. I know now IPL, other events, the shows you're creating, and you talk. Imagine if, I'm not saying that people will stop going to movies or movie theaters, but if they started watching movies on their phone or in their home, how does it impact your business?
So let me try. I think in your monologue, there are about 5 hidden questions. So I'll try and remember each one of them. There are 2.5 billion movie tickets sold in India annually, which is all of Africa, Middle East, North America, and Europe put together. But we have only 12 screens per million people as opposed to 120 screens per million people in the US. So we are still very underserved. We used to be 33 cents a ticket on an average till about 3 or 4 years ago. We are now up to $1.60, $1.70. The average multiplex ticket price is up to $4. Also, it is incorrect. In the US, the admit numbers fell dramatically, but the revenues in the last 2 years have been the highest ever in the US film business, theatrical business. The big difference is that the experience was poor in the US. You had free seating, no allocated seating. Kids used to come with their mobile phones which were on, and all the paying audiences had gone. Do you know the average ticket price in India? If the market was going down, the average ticket price has gone up from $8 to $9 to $16. That is because gold class viewing has become very popular in the US.
Those are very small numbers.
No, it's not. You see the overall numbers in revenue, they've dramatically changed.
Clearly you know.
And the reason is, even in India, if you recall our time, cinema experiences went down purely because they were unkept. Then came the era of VCR, then came the era of VCDs, then came the era of DVDs and LDs. It was all pirated. Then you had a print, which a producer would make only 500 prints. It would go to the top 500 cinemas. There'd be shuttling between cinemas, and then it could go. But the media, the television media and the newsprint penetrated quickly, and therefore, a guy in a small village had the same aspirations as a guy in a big city, would want to watch his favorite star on first day, first show. But if you tell him you've got to wait for 6 months, he'd pirate the stuff. Today, with digital cinemas, you get the first day, first show at the same time. And that's why more and more cinemas are being built, and your average price is going up. If you thought the movie business was under threat, then why are the prices going up and not down? Why are more gold class coming? This is an open business. It's run by entrepreneurs who are intelligent and know which side of the bread to butter. Why would they enter this business? Number one. Number two, different strokes for different folks. As India becomes more discerning and you have more of your 400 middle Brazil of India, you say there are too many entertainment options, I argue, because you live in South Delhi. Please go to a smaller town.
I
and
go to
you'll
Bombay
see,
a lot.
Yeah, come to a smaller town, and you'll realize that there are very few entertainment experiences. And the point is that even alcohol is banned in a lot of in a lot of states in India. A lot of religion-based, you cannot have alcohol, you can't do this, you can't do that. So what tends to happen is that your choices actually become very less. Also, India is a hot country. The environment is very harsh. And therefore, cinema viewing is a social activity which is the cheapest indoor entertainment, form of entertainment. Why is cinema viewing so big in South India? Is because the temperatures in South India are higher. And if you see movie theaters, they still have 70 mm air-conditioned or air-cooled cinemas. It's sold as air-conditioned and air-cooled cinemas, right? Because the environment is not that great. So you've got to look at why ice hockey is so big in Canada. Is because it's -20, -30 outside. Therefore, you play a sport indoors. Now, if I were to use this analogy and look at the US, more than 60% is sports-related entertainment. And then is movies and music, and then is movies. The last 5 years has been the biggest blockbuster year for live entertainment in the US. People are going back to experiential viewing by stepping out of the homes. So when you are discerning, your GDP is growing, they want to spend more time, they want more avenues for entertainment, not less. Now your final question on OTT versus this. OTT today caters to a very small sliver. You're spending $600, $800 per month. The reason why it did so well in the US is because your average cable and internet bill is $100 a month. Netflix was $10, which is 1/10 the price of your average cable bill in the month. The average cable bill for an Indian in an urban market is 250 rupees. 25 rupees is the price point. Number one. Number two is that I have a converse theory that OTT actually is helping content become better. Because when movies are made today, the backstop and the risk is already taken away by OTT because they are doing the pre-buy. The content is becoming better because the writers and professionalism is coming in, so the content is more mid-sized, and they're not just the blockbusters which people are dependent on. 200 crore film, 300. You can do a 25 crore film, 30, 40 crore film, and one of the OTT buyers will buy your product, do a theatrical release, so you already have a backstop. So you've got a safety net. Plus the writing and the quality of the content becomes better because it's story-led, not actor-led.
Sure.
So if you've seen in BookMyShow, December was the biggest bumper year we've had in our 20-year history. And you may say some films did well, they didn't do well, but there was so much mid-level content that actually we've had the highest sales ever in the history of our company in 20 years. So even with so many OTT players, in fact, our sales have gone up, not down.
Fantastic. I mean, nobody can argue with data, right?
No, you can't argue with me.
With data. And in some way, it brings me to the penultimate question. You're a data company. You said that before, right? I have not said that. Now, as I said at the start, you can actually sell a show even before you bring. In fact, because you looked at data, you know what kind of audience will buy. You can reach out directly to them. You can pre-sell. Tell me some other insights that data brought, and you were able to use it to bring some shows, some content, where data led you to insights, and that led to you creating or co-creating or bringing an IPR. Give us an example.
Yeah, so I do agree, data is extremely important. And, but they say in investing, right? Most investors have all the data in the world. But at the end of the day, they'll put one postscript line which says, investing is an art and not a science.
And you and me read the same book, The Hard Things About Hard Things.
Exactly. So it's science, it's art, not science. At the end of the day, that call has to be an artistic call. It has to be a right brain EQ activity, not a left brain activity. So we have all the data. We've got data for 19. This is our 20th year. We've got 20 years of data. I know every customer who's bought movie tickets. Are they a family because they've bought kids' movies? They've not bought, and movies gives us the volume and scale. But we can extrapolate that data for a lot of stuff. I mean, with Fountainhead, with Percept, with Event Capital. I mean, we use our data to price point, do modeling exercises. We do, I mean, Sunburn, right from year one. We've been working with Karan and Harry on modeling, on price points, variable ticket prices, when to start, what to start. But at the end of the day, there are many things: content, location, artists, experience, and that data just cannot solve. You can take some right bets. You can pre-sell something for the first year, but if you make an ass out of consumers, they're not going to come back the second year.
Sure.
So at the end of the day, all those pieces of the jigsaw puzzle need to fall into place for it to be a successful event. Now, you asked me an analogy or an example. We used data for Disney's Aladdin, and we did use data for Cirque du Soleil. It was a big risk that we took because Cirque du Soleil, we did a world premiere. Cirque has never had a brand new show anywhere outside of Montreal, let alone Canada, right? So, I mean, outside of Montreal, they've never done a show, which is a world premiere. We did it in Bombay. It was a huge risk. We jointly did it. It was a very high-risk, expensive proposition, but we knew that there was a big gap in family entertainment. And that price point, you've always got to find that price point and how much can you charge and how much money do you want to make versus you don't want to make it too expensive. And so you can do weekday, weekend analysis, you can do Bombay versus Delhi, you can do all of that. But at the end of the day, there are certain things that drive certain behaviors. So I'll give you a fun analogy on Delhi because you pulled my leg on Bombay and I'm going to get back.
18 days
it doesn't matter.
Every month in Bombay.
It still didn't matter.
You
still called it a small town, so now I'm going to pull your leg on Delhi. So anyways, I don't forget I'm a scorpion. And
I know a little bit about scorpions.
So in Delhi, if you've seen this, and science, if you've seen this Giffin's paradox of economic theory, normally when price goes up, your demand should come down. And when price goes down, demand goes up. That's normal economic basic theory. Giffin's paradox on high-end products, if your Louis Vuitton, Jimmy Choo price goes up, or Rolex in the downturn of 2008 increased their price by 20%, their sales went up by 33%. Rolex in that year. So in Giffin's paradox, when your price goes up, your demand goes up. And in very cheap goods, like bread or something, or pav, when the price goes down, demand goes down because people think that it's an inferior quality product. In Delhi, we feed the right brain, which is ego, which is, it's a market where Giffin's paradox works for us. I saw that in Formula One. We saw that in Mughal-e-Azam, where you have row number A, and then you have B, C, D, and then you have whatever, right? Your rows. And in Bombay, we had 2 rows of 15,000, and then 10,000, 5,000, whatever, and the price went down. In Delhi, in the first 5 shows, we had the same pricing model. And then we saw a massive demand for the most expensive category. And we realized from conversation and post-research that people just wanted to tell people that they sat in zone A. So I had 15 rows of A, which was called A, AA, AAA, 4A, A1, A2, A3, A4, 10 रो 15,000 की कर दी. Everybody saying, वो घर जाके बोल रहे हैं, मैं तो सर जी A में ही बैठा था. आप कहाँ बैठे थे? So in Delhi, you can use the Giffin's paradox and use data.
I have not gone and
like
seen Cirque du Soleil.
No, this was not Cirque du Soleil. This was Mughal-e-Azam.
Mughal-e-Azam. Clearly, that's a good anecdote. I'll end by asking you the last question. I had lots on you. I read a lot. But tell me, where do you see BookMyShow in next 2 to 3 years? I'm not asking 5, 10 years. Too far. Or Ashish Hemrajani, 3 to 5 years. And for the sake of discussion, I'm taking both of you as one.
That's another fallacy, because I think while most businesses are founded by entrepreneurs and founders, I think at some point of time, as you go through your growth curves and crisis of growth, crisis of management, crisis of this, you've got to be relevant and evolve. Today as an organization, unfortunately or fortunately, I'm the face of the organization, and sometimes I've got to do this. But really it is a testament to the quality of the talent and the people that we have. And I can give you numerous stories on my customer care head, Komal Chenani, or my warehousing head, Sanjay Asilwal, who came from very humble, meager backgrounds.
And some of them were your friends. I saw your top team.
My leadership team are my friends.
All of your
my
friends.
partners have become friends. My leadership team are friends.
Yeah.
So you build a business on relationships. And in India, you can't test any contract. Drag rights, tag rights, jiski lathi uska bhais in this country, you cannot test any contract. It's crap. So you've got to be able to build businesses through partnerships of trust, of right shared values, and just paying people on time and not, especially in the events industry, not screwing over a vendor. You made a bad business decision. That doesn't mean you screw somebody else over. BookMyShow always pays. It doesn't matter whether we've done well, not done well. We don't take anybody's money. And that is just a simple, eternal 101 practice of business, and pay on time, right? Your consumer's paying you. If you had a bad event, how can you not pay somebody on time and delay somebody's payments from 60 days to 180 days? I think that's another thing that just gets into a dirty, vicious cycle, and therefore it gives this entire industry a really, really bad name. So as far as I'm concerned, BookMyShow is 5 different verticals. We have 5 different companies, and what I'd like to see for BookMyShow is a company which is independently growing and leaves a legacy or a mark for the next 25 years, independent of the founder or anybody. Are we good citizens by drawing from value from society, creating value for ourselves and giving back? So one of the things which is very close to my heart is every time you buy a ticket on BookMyShow, I'm not a religious guy, but if you know the Bhagavad Gita, it is Krishna's discourse to Arjuna on the battlefield of good versus evil. If your intent is good, your means could be wrong, but the end goal has to be important. Every time you buy a ticket on BookMyShow, instead of an opt-in of 1 rupee, I actually skim 80% of my customers who don't realize, which I learned from advertising. Times New Roman, gray font, 6, opt-out, which is book a smile. That 1 rupee, which you don't realize that you're paying me, I collect more than 18 crores a year. I sell a double amputee kid to the Pan Am Games, he won the silver medal. All Cirque du Soleil, we did a show for all NGOs of underprivileged kids for Bombay and Delhi. Aladdin, we called kids from NGOs which were cancer kids, and 30% of them were terminally ill. There was a 6-year-old kid, that was the last thing that they'd see. There are 300 girls from Jharkhand who are acid and rape victims' daughters. We fund their entire soccer program. And 6 of them went for a UEFA 1 level coaching to Real Sociedad. And they slept on a mattress and ate hot food for the first time, wore soccer shoes for the first time, with 6 European girls. And after the 1-month training, which we funded completely, there was a match between Real Madrid and Real Sociedad with 60,000 fans. And both these groups of girls, 12 of them, held the players' hands and they went on stage. All my IPL games, ISL, Kabaddi, we take 1 month's salary, we take 1 day off for all janitors, ushering staff, stadium staff, and replace them and pay for their salary, get them food, and get them to watch the game instead of clean toilets. I think if we can leave a legacy by drawing from society, creating value, and giving back, and somewhere you create value, then it was all worth it. So that's my vision for BookMyShow. If you were expecting...
You read that book called Delivering Happiness?
I have.
Zappo.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite book. But if
so
you were...
it kind of correlates with what you're saying.
That was for the consumers. Here I'm doing for society, because this is the only country in the world where the difference is so stark, where you in your quilt can call your Cocker Spaniel, but you cannot let another human being shit in your same toilet because you think he's below you and because he's unhygienic. And what you eat today at Eros Hotel and what he eats at home will look the same tomorrow morning, but you still differentiate. But you're okay with a dog. So I think if we can impact society through that, and if your question was what my valuation will be, numbers will be P&L.
Will you sell to Ticketmaster?
I don't know what I'll do, but I just want to leave this imprint.
You will?
I don't care.
Headlines?
No.
I
don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. What I don't know, I don't know.
That's not a serious
No, but anyways, what I don't know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Having said that, on the other one where I see myself, I think I want to be able to contribute more internally with the people that I work within the company. My stakeholders are my shareholders, the stakeholders are my employees, the stakeholders are my consumers, and my stakeholders are just people where through the medium, and I know today, being born and raised in Bombay and in India, for me, I think I find that the distance between and the difference between the haves and the have-nots is increasing dramatically. And I think as the GDP is growing, the lion's share is actually going to that 100 million and not to the 700 million, while the emerging middle class is getting a trickle-down benefit. I want to be able to spend a lot more time through my medium of voice, through the power of my communication, through the power of my platform, to be able to do more. And I think as business leaders and entrepreneurs, we in the events business and experiential marketing have that power to make that change. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, entertainers do that. A lot of us end up putting it under the, shoving it under the carpet till we are 60 or 65 and say, when I make my money, I'll do charity. Or on the flip side, you term it under the CSR. The government has told me to do CSR. It's wrong, because this is your obligation first and then everything else. So I think those are my two sort of key goals.
Give Ashish a big round of applause. He's, so to say, walking the talk.